Good evening. It is now 19 hours 30 in Guyana, and you're tuned into the radio with a difference. Yes, that is 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. And it is time for Room 592 at the helm of this evening's program. As usual, Dr. Yog Mahadeo and senior journalist of Kaiser News, Leonard Gildarie. And tonight, they have a special guest for you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, dear Kevin Smith and Dr. Yog Mahadeo. I think
Thank you. Good evening to you, Leonard. How are you tonight, sir?
plenty work, Yog, but we get in there already. I'm all excited. I see we have a very good young man there. Very, very, very young.
Yes.
More young than
Yes. And
myself.
just before we come to Kian, let me just say, viewers and listeners all across Guyana, the Caribbean, and of course the diaspora, our families in the US, UK, Canada, welcome to Room 592, where we unleash the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, it's certainly been an interesting week, to say the least. We have seen, we have heard, we have all learned about all the things that are happening at the Artichoke Convention Center. We know the status of the Carter Center. We know the status of the CARICOM observers. We do know up to 2 o'clock today the status of the recount as it was ongoing. We do know also that as of this evening, I think the last count I got at about 6:32, 6:30 hours. We have a number that I know that Kian Jabour would be sharing with us tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, as we get into the discussion tonight, short albeit so, it is to give you an update, but a first-hand update from a man who was there, who has been pulling up his sleeves and getting his hands dirty, and I don't mean dirty in a literal sense, but getting into the action. Kian, if it wasn't such a serious thing, this would have been a real comic scenery in Guyana, isn't it, sir?
Well, you can explain that one a little bit for me. If it wasn't so serious, it would be a very common.
Yeah, no, it would have been the best comedy.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah,
we get quite a laugh out of it.
Yeah, before you get into the update, I want to share something with you. You are young, it's your first time into politics in Guyana. And somebody said to me today that there gotta be people like Josh and Kian and the youngsters that jinx this thing, it's the first time they get into it. But jokes aside, Kian, I want to open the floor to you, sir. We are here tonight, room 592, to have the update from you, a young man, first time in politics. Sir, it's 1 week since the recount has started. Unfortunately or fortunately, today also marks day one after election 2015. So it's about this time that a new government would have been announced, and people, then in 2015, President Granger was calling on GCOM, release your SOPs, let us see what's there, let the whole world see what's happening. Basil Williams was calling for sanctions, and all of that was happening in 2015. However, sir, let us hear from you. What's the update? What's happening at the Artichoke Convention Center? Over to you, sir.
Let me start by saying, I can argue that we're not the jinx, but we're actually the reason to shed some light on this a little bit and not just be consumed by two parties, politics and propaganda. So I hope that we are the reason that that coming from an unbiased position, I hope that we've been able to, give some people some insight as to the truth that's happening behind the magic. And I've heard a lot of people that have stopped calling us the small parties and now call us the new parties, because obviously, I want to hope that people have gained a little bit of confidence in us, especially after they lost so much confidence in third parties after AFC. I want to hope that people can take the time now and for themselves and see that, we're in this for the fight, and we're in this having learned from other people's mistakes and the problems that this country has had in the past, and hoping that we can inject some new energy and some new perspective to the situation. Granted, we are small in numbers, but hopefully that's going to grow, and we're going to be able to have a little bit of a stronger voice in the time coming.
But Kian, I wish to mention something here. Leonard and we do a daily program, and I have taken pains to explain something, and I wish to re-explain it here, sir. Nobody, according to APNO AFC, we don't know the results of the election, so we don't know if you're small. What we do know, what we do know is that you, all the parties, are equal stakeholders in Guyana at this moment. All of you. And this is why Leonard and I has been calling that when you, any of you, and when I say you, I mean whether it's a new and united Guyana, whether it's Labour Justice Party, whether it's PPPC, whoever you are, and this is why I was happy when you guys called for a meeting, Madam Claudette Singh decided to meet with you. It was not, in my view, meeting with the smaller parties or the new party. It was meeting with the equal stakeholders. When the recount is finished, then we'll decide whether to call you small or new.
Yeah, so I guess we can start at that point where we did have our meeting with Ms. Claudette Singh and the Commission. Granted, quite a bit has happened previous to that, which is why we wanted to call the meeting. And they were very receptive. I'd like to say that as well as probably the foundation of my opinion on this is that GCOM has been extremely efficient. GCOM has been very responsive. GCOM has been very helpful in all that we've been through so far. And I can honestly say that I believe that up to this point, these elections recount is credible. Okay, we are in every station. If we don't have an agent in that station, I can tell you that the newer parties are collaborating. And we are getting results from every single district. And the reality is we can attest to these results at the moment. Everything that you have seen live fed to you from the tabulation room, we agree with. There's been no contest to it so far. We've watched the boxes open. We've watched them counted. We've watched the issues come up. We've watched the allegations come and go. And the reality is what is in those boxes is very fairly and accurately represented on that tabulation sheet. We can argue that we've been comparing a lot of the recordings and a lot of information that we have from the Ashman's building declarations. And, there definitely seems to be some discrepancies there. We're not going to try to divulge too much into, what is the larger picture as a result of it. But the reality is, I believe that from here on out, whatever comes from this recount will be the final declaration. And I had a nice conversation with Ms. Claudette Singh just this evening as I was leaving. And we both agreed that the process is going through so far. And we are looking at ways that we can discuss. So there is a consultation type system happening in which we can lend our input to, for example, the speeding up of this process. The system is working at the moment. So why not put in a few more stations? Why not, refine the process in a few areas in which are redundant, if you will. And because we are on the ground and in those stations every day, all day, we've been able to lend a fair bit of opinion to it. So, and again, getting back to my original point, GCOM has been extremely responsive and extremely helpful and glad for our input. And we've been getting a good response when it comes to, I can tell you, previous to March 2nd, we beg a GCOM for a meeting and they would ignore us completely. Right? We every single, party, I think, at least the third parties asked for meetings, asked for clarification on things, and it was horrific communication. We didn't get any.
Right.
But now I can say, for some reason, there's been a turnaround on that, and I think we're moving forward steadily.
Great. So, but I wanna just take your mind back because you mentioned something important there. You're getting the cooperation, you're getting the call to action. You call for a meeting, you're getting a meeting and stuff like that. Are you not in the same place you were presently on March 2nd? Are you not in the same place you were before the fateful Mingo Day?
Yes, in the context of we are powerless to GCOM. And I think that's how the system is designed, and we need to remember that. I can argue right now that that's a flaw, but the reality is we are powerless in the way the system is designed. It's what raises our fears and our emotions in all this, because naturally, as a new and united Guyana hopes to have an input in our democratic process and in this country's governance, it leaves us in an uncomfortable position that we have been burned once by what GCOM themselves did. I'm not going to say the commission itself, because I like to argue that if the commission wanted to make a final declaration on these 2020 elections, they could have by now. So believe it or not, if they wanted to force and bully their way in and allow APNU to win this election based on Mingo's numbers, they could have done that. So for me to sit here and tell you that I've lost all confidence in GCOM, I'd have to say there are a few little instances that I can hold on to, maybe clutching at straws, but nonetheless I can hold on to as a sense of confidence. Right. Again, you are right in saying though that we are in a position that we were similar to March 2nd and the results coming up to there, but we are very fortunate that this recount has happened the way it has, because we have been able to be a part of every step of the way. So, for example, on March 2nd, when all the polling stations, 2,339 polling stations were being counted simultaneously around the country, we didn't have the resources to be there. Now we have 10 stations, counting through 4 districts at a time. The reality is we have somebody in every single one of those, so we can verify these numbers ourselves. And we're not waiting for, or have, for example, a lot of people think that we got our original SOPs from, the PVP. That was not the case at all. What had actually happened is we were able to move around the districts that we had supporters in and the regions that we had supporters in. And yes, we didn't have every single one, but I can tell you that we had SOPs from the polling stations of many polling stations around the country, hundreds. I can tell you, I can honestly tell you, we had hundreds of SOPs that we independently collected, and that's what we were using to bounce our numbers off of. And again, I can tell you with high confidence, okay, because I was there myself, that the numbers that the PPP put out in their SOPs related directly back to the numbers that we had. So you hear us coming and speaking about, the PPP's numbers are accurate and etc. And that's because we did the check ourselves. It's not because we believed the PPP. You know what I mean? And they just fed us something. We actually did our research. And a lot of people don't know that or understand that. And we get this whole, you guys are just surrogates. Oh, you guys are, minions and blah, 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 and arms of the PPP. But people don't understand how much research we do in the background, how much these small parties collaborate, or new parties collaborate in the background, and we make sure we verify every bit of information we get. So that's the reality.
That's right. But I can tell you this, because Mr. Gildarie and I, we face it every day on radio. There are many people who feel that we have taken a side, that we are opposed to the incumbent because we are calling it the way we see it. Like you, I have in my possession probably about 300 or 400 photographs of SOPs from various places across the country. Like you, and that's a good point you made, because to the viewers and listeners out there, yes, we have our independent sources of information. Stabrook News has published quite a bit. Kaiser News published some. I have some that were not published by Stabrook News or Kaiser News, about, as I said, 300 or 400, I can't remember the exact number, of SOPs. So yes, Kian, we're able to compare to what was being read by the declaration in GCOM, and we were able to do an independent analysis of who really won the elections. At the end of the day, though, we're all told, well, it's neither you or I that can say who won. It's GCOM that must make that declaration. And while I share your optimism, because like you, I'm an eternal optimist, that things seem to be going apace and going in the right way, one cannot be unmindful of history, and not far and long ago history, not Harold Boller's history, but recent history within the last 60 days. So Kian, you have said that GCOM has acted more responsive. I have noted, though, you did not say they have acted more responsible. Now, responsive is good. And I certainly hope that when you and I talk, hopefully again, same time again next week, hopefully, that you will also share with us that they're acting responsibly as well. But sir, let's come to the recount. And I want to ask you straight up that we have seen, in the case of a box with 50 odd or 60 odd ballots, there are 47 objections or 47 issues that are raised. Are these allegedly? Are these red flags? Well, red is a bad color, but are these dangerous signals for you in any way, or you feel it's just part of the process we need to put behind us?
This is where we are right now. This is the big issue that's consuming us every day. I as a supervisor for ANUG United Guyana in the Arthur Chung Convention Center, I can tell you that every issue that is raised in these recount stations at the moment is with these observation reports. That's where everything is circling right now. You asked me if GCOM is acting responsibly. Again, it's always very important to be very specific with your words, especially in our line of work at the moment. So I can tell you that in an unbiased position, I do believe it is everyone's right. Everyone that has contested these elections, every stakeholder in this, I do believe it is their right to question the results and question what is in those boxes. I'd like to go a little past what you've been hearing, and I know this is part of the rhetoric, but I think, you know, as I've been keeping up to date with all the other parties, I think we've all kind of slowly drifted past the fact that this is not just a recount. This is something I would more put in the realm of a special recount. It's not an elections petition, but it's definitely not just as simple as a recount. So we have the right to question what are inside of these boxes. We have the right to question discrepancies that have come up and that we have noticed. What I'd like to point out, though, is as far as I am concerned, at this very point in time, every bit of information that is being tried to introduce into this process, i.e., dead people voting, immigrants voting, people who are ticked off on the list but didn't actually vote, etc., all manner of issues. The reality is, at this point in time, they're all allegations. All right? We need to find a balance, and this is something I'm working now with the GCOM commissioners, and it's a large part of my day, you know, kind of lobbying them and getting more clarity on this, is we need to understand that there has to be a limit on the amount of allegations you can try and stuff into this one process, into this one count of this one box. We're ending up prolonging this entire process with I sat down, as you just said, I personally sat down in a room today that somebody asked for 15 names to be checked. Let me give an example of this process. This agent, I'll tell you exactly, it was an ANUG agent, sat down in the room. When the whole count was finished, the box was finished. The ANUG agent looked at the PO, the presiding officer, and said, I would like to find out the status, to have the list checked for serial number, blah, blah, blah. And he named 15, 10 or 15, in about there. Names, call it, let's say 10 names. He called 10 serial numbers. He said, I want to check these. Can GCOM please check it? Well, everybody went, well, what are you asking for exactly? Why is he checking that? I want to see if they voted. So we said, well, to be honest with you, we don't mind checking, but why are you asking for this to be checked? Do you think they're dead? Do you think that they have left the country or weren't in the country at the time? What is your allegation? The GCOM the ANUG representative said, I'd like the list to be checked first to find out if they vote. We said, but you are just prolonging the process, because do you have any proof of these numbers and these IDs that you are calling to find out if they need verification? Oh, well, I need to find out if they voted first. This is our problem. Okay? And I know some people say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, the idea then is, why are we even doing this recount? Why not just go back through every single voter that voted, every single name, and just check them all off one time and make this process last a year and a half?
Correct.
We're, you know what I mean? We are in a very awkward dynamic, because we got to remember that transparency is still key, but we have to understand that there has to be limitations on these allegations. Well, that's where we're falling.
Clarification. So the way I understand it, there must be a basis for your objection or a basis for your observation, which is what you guys have questioned. Okay, you want us to check 15 or 10 names. What's the basis upon which you're filing a report? Am I right, sir?
Yeah, so let me just show you how this affects later on. So some people say, what's the big deal? Who cares? Well, when you write on the observation report that you just, that this person has found 5 discrepancies, it needs to be very clear on that observation report that this person has asked for 15 names to be checked, but only 3 of them raised doubt that he has queried. The reason being is it shows that we're stabbing in the dark here. And all this will lead up to an elections petition. That's what the plan is, in our opinion here. They want to question all the results and say that the process was fraudulent.
Correct.
Well, listen.
So Kian, come back to that same point just before we move ahead. What was the outcome? Did the officer in the room accommodate to register the 10 objections without basis?
Yeah, well, what we made sure, and we made it very clear on that observation report, was that the APNU representative, the APNU agent, asked for these to be counted without basis, with no allegations. They are just requesting for random numbers to be checked, have not given a basis for their reasoning. And we would like to show how many they asked and how many in reality were in fact compromised. Oh. I can tell you right now that in our case here today, none were. So just think about that for a second. You asked for 15 to be checked, and you didn't give us the reason you want to check it. And now when we did, we made sure, and it's all in the observation report, you can't stop the process. We just made sure the observation report said he checked all of these and none of them were valid. So we are now in a position where people are making on basis, without validation, invalid requests, and you are just slowing down the process essentially. Okay, so this is our problem with this, and we need that to be clearly read out in the observation report. Because as far as I am concerned, and I'll tell you, this observation report cannot, and this is a very key part of the end result of it, this observation report cannot have an effect on those numbers that go up on that tabulation screen at the end of the day. The reason being is those numbers that are shown live to the public, those numbers have already been agreed upon by every single stakeholder, the PPP, the APNU, ANUG, every single party that took place in this, including the observers, which don't sign but are in the room, agreed that those numbers that go up on that tabulation screen at the end of the day are indeed accurate and correct as to what were in that box. So you cannot discredit the results after this process is finished.
Great. So here is one of the issues we have had coming out. Leonard, I'm sorry, you've been very quiet, but let me ask this question, then I'll hand over to you, Leonard. Here is one of the issues that would have been coming out over the past day or two, Kian. And based on what was coming out, I started a Facebook poll on my page, and I asked persons, the population in general, how confident are you that elections 2020 recount will get to completion? Do you feel it will be completed or it will be aborted? You might be surprised with this answer. So far, this thing was posted for about 3 hours now. And so far, we got 82% of the persons, which is about 250 persons, voted voted that they feel the recount will be aborted, that something will happen to cause it to be aborted. So the confidence, my point, I'm not being a naysayer here. We all want the process to be completed, but the confidence level in the population is not high. And I think that is what the chairman needs to be made aware of. Not only is this country in a virtual abyss, but here is the other thing, Kian. I just want to switch a little bit from this. Two things I'll tell you. One, why is it, and I'm not asking you, I'm just saying it, that APNU AFC has literally thrown all of their party agents under the bus? In other words, what APNU AFC has done, viewers and listeners, is to say to this population that all of our agents were involved in some scheme that made dead people vote and made people who were not in Guyana vote at that time. That's literally what they said. Now, today, Kian, yeah, go on. You want
No, I was just about to add a statement after that. Even though all our agents colluded and created a fraudulent process, we still won the election. So
indeed.
It's illogical, right?
Correct. And yesterday, in fact, one of the party agents said that on election day, the agents are not empowered to object. All they could do is take a note, and then you move on outside of the election.
They could not sign the SOPs if they didn't want to.
Exactly. So here is the point, because today, viewers and listeners, I had an interesting conversation with somebody that I really don't speak with much because of past history and so forth. But I spoke to former President Donald Ramotar about an hour and a half ago, because Leonard, you remember in 2011, Mr. Ramotar was stopped from voting when he went to cast his vote. The GCOM, the returning officer there, questioned his right to vote at that polling station. So my point is that the people in the polling station had a right, and they objected. The matter was eventually resolved, but it was the man who was a presidential candidate. So this narrative that they cannot object on elections day is not necessarily true, because as Kian said, you even have the right where you do not sign the statement of poll at the end of the day. Leonard, what's your thoughts on this, sir?
Well, that's a new one to me, but I don't think there are rules and there are rules. And if there are people that are sitting there and they're aware of the rules, I don't know much about any kind of legal in this particular scenario here, but I rather believe that you have the right to objection, because there are going to be rules, and if there are rules, there are going to be things that's going to be cropping up on elections day, and if you don't agree with it, there has to be recourse, and the recourse obviously would be the objections.
Right, and the key point Mr. Jabour has made is that the same persons who are making all of these objections have said that they won based on those same SOPs and the results. Kian, I'm going to come back to you. What's your take in terms of the number of boxes, the pace itself? Because today a week has passed, and I think you are just about 200, just over 200 boxes, right? We're going to get a number in a moment, but. Okay. What's your take? I know you guys have made representation for additional workstations. So how do you see the next week stepping up?
You know, just to go back just for 1 second, just to touch on. I'd like to make it very clear, and everyone can go back and check, because it's in public record. Every single political party, including PPP and APNU, all the international observers, all the local observers, GCOM, have all said that March 2nd, 2020, election day, went basically flawless. Okay, there were no questions on that given day. All of them attested that they are happy and content and comfortable that the day in itself ran smoothly. All right? So I think that's an important message for everyone to remember.
It is important.
Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. When it comes to speeding up the process and the way we're going to do this, I know a request. I followed it up throughout the day today, and I know they had proposed between 8 and 10 new stations. I know Commissioner Alexander took a walk around the premises today, trying to identify different areas that it can work. I can tell you right now, as we discuss it, I can personally find about 6 that are absolutely perfect and won't affect anybody, won't put anybody in an uncomfortable COVID-19, social distancing predicament. So we can add successfully, in my opinion, at least 6 more stations. The other number, they can play with a little bit more. I think they can still make it happen, but again, that one's out of my hands, or at least I haven't analyzed them. When it comes to the actual process and speeding this up, there's something called a basket of issues that GCOM calls it, the commission calls it, where you have heard many times throughout the process from all the different stations, from all the different supervisors, from all the different agents, many issues that keep reoccurring. So what has been happening is the commission itself has been accumulating all of these issues together on a document, and they are now putting together basically standard operating procedure that will help to streamline these issues in those stations. So what happens a lot of the time, a lot of people might not know, is every now and again we get new agents and GCOM staff that are moving around into different stations every day. And a lot of the issues continuously reoccur, just over and over and over. You go to the new station, it's something new again. You go to the next station, they have the same problem, the next day. So we've now worked along with the commission, brought all of these issues under one umbrella, and we said, you guys, because that's not our place now, you guys need to come up with standard operating answers that you can tell all of your agents, during your morning briefings, because they have morning briefings almost every day with the GCOM staff and their secretariat, and they then give them the new instructions and send them out during the day. That process, we think, has had a lot of holes in it. They haven't been, the secretariat, as much as we want to rag on them and make them sound like they haven't been doing their job, the secretariat still works under GCOM's commission's reign and GCOM's commission's control. And the reality is they can't go around making decisions on their own. So I'm not even going to sit there and blame the secretariat.
But they have, haven't they? They have, haven't they? We have heard reports where the GCOM secretariat would have translated decisions of the commission and enforce certain rules on the floor that would have had to go back for appeals I mean, we have had Commissioner Gunraj, Leonard, remember last week, and he did allege that he believes that the secretariat sometimes acted on its own volition without the blessing of the commission itself.
Well, I really wanted to ask the young man there a couple questions, and if I may, who do we blame when this is maybe at this point in time? Who do you blame, Mr. Jabour, for everything that has happened? Is it a political party or GCOM?
So that's let me just answer that important question, and the one that Yog touched on there is similar to this. It's the same answer. So, coming from an unbiased point of view, my opinion on this is that today, I'll give you an example. Today, I was in a station as a supervisor. They had an issue, and I went to the station. The observer, the agent, our ANUG agent, said they want an issue. They want to raise an issue in the observation report that they want recorded. The agent said no. The agent refused to put it in. The PO, right? The presiding officer said, no, I'm not putting that in. We raised it as a large issue and we said, no, you need to put all of our issues inside of it. It can't just be one or the other or the big parties. Everyone needs to be able to have a recording of their issues or their observations. So what had happened is the presiding officer said, okay, let me go and consult with my supervisors, the people above. I can tell you for a fact, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. He went into a room in which Ms. Claudette Singh, Chairwoman Ms. Claudette Singh was in, and a room with which Mr. Robeson Ben was in, Commissioner Ben was in. They were in the middle of a conversation. All right, I'm telling you this because I heard it from the commissioners themselves. This is not what the PO came back and told me. He said, he went in and he raised the issue. The commission, the two agents of the commission inside of there, Ms. Singh and Ms. Ben, said to him, when he raised it, he said, they're asking me to put this in the observation report. Their answer is, the commission has to meet on that today, so we will not tell you what to do. That was exactly it, okay? So he left there now, came back to the station that we were at, and he said, I'm not putting it in. I can't blame him for that, all right? He followed procedure. He went and he went all the way up to the top, and he didn't get a response, and he made his decision to not include it. I'm sorry, as much as it's against me, this was against our party, all right, ANUG. I'm telling you that I'm not going to blame that presiding officer for not doing that, all right? Okay. So we need to understand that there are more sides to this. There's different things happening, all right? And I understand that everybody has their own opinions on it, but sometimes we need to take a step back and look at it a little unbiasedly. Although I can, knock on both sides for doing things that I don't, that I'll question. I do believe in certain cases, I'm not going to completely blame the Secretariat at all times, because the commission is still in control. And at the end of the day, as a businessman myself, if the staff are doing something, that isn't correct, the result of what happens there still needs to be blamed on management, because you didn't operate, correctly or efficiently.
Correct.
No, yes, I want to ask, I heard today that the decision has been taken to explore the possibilities of more counting stations. I remember, and again, when you look at the order that was made by GCOM, it was specifically for 10 counting stations, and that's based on health and other safety concerns, and in keeping with the COVID-19 safety measures that they have there. How is this? Is this not in conflict with what we would have, because we would have pushed those 10 counting stations to the max? Here it is that you're moving at the 11th hour, when, was it the 7th? I think this is the 7th day. We at the 11th hour, and we're trying to determine now whether we could have more counting stations, when it was our understanding, when they arrived at the figure 10, that was the maximum. So I would like somebody to explain that to me.
All right. I like this topic a lot because it's something that is happening on a regular basis since this process started. What GCOM, I can't say we because we weren't involved with the original process and deciding on this, but what GCOM had originally decided upon and set out was all based on theory. There was no practice to it. So what they decided to do was plan out how this recount was going to go based on strategy at the time and information that they had at the time. All right. When it was now put into practice, you can see that there are things that can be upgraded on and things that can be changed that won't affect anything. And let me give another example as somebody on the ground every day in there. So today, when they were discussing different rooms that might be able to work are extended or separated for another station. One of the rooms, and I can even tell you it's station 8, and you can refer this back to everyone, to anybody else that you speak to in the building. Station 8, for example, is a large room. It's a large room in which all the agents are in and the GCOM representatives. In that room, there is a partition that's built into the room that you can slide across the middle of the room and separate it. Okay, you can separate the entire room and put it into 2 rooms. Originally in the planning, when they made that into 1 room, they thought to themselves, well, this is the space that everyone will need, and we won't be able to make this into 2 rooms. Well, now that the process has started and everything is laid out and everybody's kind of grooved into their own positions, and are still socially distancing, we are only using half of that room. Okay? So everyone is on one side of the room. And when you walk in, it's a big empty space in front of you, half the room. And then everyone is sitting well spaced out in the second half of the room. If you throw that partition down the middle of the room, you can easily fit the exact same number of people on the other side of, in the second part of the room. So that is to show you that in theory, it made sense that they put one station in there. But in practice, now that we're in there and we've all found our own positions and spaced each other out, and all the staff has found their position, TV screens up, tables laid out, chairs, people have places to put, stretch out, etc. We are capable of having another station in there the exact same way in the other room. So the answer is, theory was one thing when we started this process. 7 days later, we can refine it. There are lots of little areas like that can refine it, and I can tell you that as somebody that's on the ground.
Okay. So Kian, here is I want to take you back to something you said a couple of minutes ago. You said that as a businessman, and we all know this, the head of an organization, I was once the head of an organization, the buck stops with you for what people under you do or don't do, omission or commission. The buck stops with the leader, right? We all know that. That's an old paradigm. However, Kian, I cannot help but raise this point. Here is ANUG AFC. You were in that room, right? Both times, unfortunately. Here is ANUG AFC raising an objection to say, okay, we want to query all these people who we suspect not in the country, who we suspect might be dead and whatever. That's one. Two, so you, Kian, Jabour is in the vicinity where that is happening. Two, with the fact that they're raising that dead people voted and migrants were somehow voting here, how can we then fit that into the paradigm where in division number 412136, Mingo declared 208 voters, whereas the SOPs show 174. Is it that somebody somewhere, Leonard, knew how those numbers were built up from the 174 to the 208? Because that was Mingo's declaration. The ANUG had 86 on the SOP, PPP had 84. That was a very close call. 86 ANUG, 84 PPP. But when Mingo declared, he declared 140 for ANUG and 64 for PPP. So the number of votes in that box was inflated. So I'm sorry to bring this up here, Kian, because I know you're focused on something else. But from our perspective as people of this country, we now have to look at the same set of people that increase numbers willy-nilly out of thin air to make a declaration and now are questioning the base numbers. Something has to be wrong with this picture. And my friend, you said the head has to be responsible. Well, sir, from Mingo's declaration to today's date, I have not heard the head of GCOM say anything to chastise Mr. Mingo or to bring any one of the employees of GCOM to bear the fruits of their disservice to the nation. And that is unforgivable.
I actually, and I'll say this without trying to divulge too much. I think it's important, I had a conversation just about this today with some members of the commission. And there's two things I think we need to do here. And the first one is, and very importantly, have some patience. The reason I say that is because this process isn't finished yet. All right? Yes, I can tell you that I agree that we do have figures that show that Mingo's declarations were inflated. I agree with you there. At this point in time, for the commission to react to that might be a little bit premature with all the other stuff we have going on.
Yes, we see.
Why do our conversations have to go like this?
And I don't.
Something is wrong with us here. But Leonard, meanwhile, I'm sure Mr. Jabour is going to rejoin us. You get my point, Leonard, that process. I mean, you and I are on radio every day, and viewers and listeners, while Mr. Jabour is coming on back, let's share with you that tomorrow, our COVID watch and GCOM and elections watch on Kaito Radio at 2 o'clock, at 1:30, sorry. Tomorrow we expect an international head of an embassy to be joining us. However, I wish to tell you, yours truly will not be there tomorrow. Leonard will have to pull the full weight of tomorrow's show because I have some other pressing matters I have to do. Welcome back, Kian.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there. So let me tell you the last point of this that I think is extremely critical in this, and it's something that we need to always remember. Especially when we're questioning GCOM, which I know some questionable things they've done. I accept that. Mingo made his declaration in which everyone rejected on the basis that we don't know where you got those numbers from. Our numbers look different. We have a problem with that. What we need to remember is when Mingo, in his capacity of his position, made a decision to make that declaration. From that point on, here's the idea. From that point on, those numbers were not used to make a final declaration of this election. Okay? At no point in time did GCOM Commission make a final declaration. Okay? And that's important. So we have a situation where Mingo... let me finish it. We had a situation here where Mingo made a declaration that we all questioned. Please bear in mind, we do not have the GCOM SOPs. So we could not verify at that time that those were false. We only had our numbers. And again, we are powerless in the situation because we have to remember at the end of the day, GCOM's SOPs are the final document. We got to a position where he made those numbers and the buck stopped where it stopped. So for me to sit here and continue to rag on the bosses, of the managers, of the head of this corporation, the idea is I can tell you that they may have questioned the Mingo's results as well. And the idea is they didn't act on it. That's the truth. As much as we want to sit here and they have not and was not
right.
Nor have they acted on it. Again, we're in the middle of a recount that we begged for, that we pleaded for. We've gotten our recount. We're in the middle of it. Yes, some things are starting to take shape and we're getting some clarity on some issues. But the reality is we need to wait till the end.
But here is the other reality, and I'm not carrying on at you. We are having a discussion. This has to be on GCOM's call. But here is the reality that concerns me. If, as you say, they have not made a declaration with Mingo's numbers, why in heaven's name are those numbers published on GCOM website? That boggles the mind. If the numbers are not acceptable to GCOM, why are they published? They should be taken down forthwith.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's no question about that. I completely agree with you there.
We seem to be having some difficulties here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, last night we had a similar issue with Mr. Charandas. We could not have had a proper conversation with him. Kian, you better rejoin us if you can. There he is. Yes, sorry, Kian.
No problem.
Yeah, you were saying.
I was saying that I do believe that there are some flaws in GCOM. I've made this very clear in my statement to the media yesterday because I was asked about, for example, Ms. Myers, the DCO. I made it very clear that at this time, I do believe that, some decisions that they're making are questionable. And I do believe that I raise my doubt when I hear about some of the things as to their motives.
Mm-hmm.
the reality is, when it comes to the commission, I think an issue, for example, of numbers is a little below their concern at this time. And that's me defending a group of people that I am in no way attached to. The reason I do that is, again, we are in a process right now, and we're in a position at the moment where I can't, rebut against the commission on the decisions they've made, because we are here now in a credible process. The numbers on a website, okay? I'm going to bring it up with the commission tomorrow. I'm going to ask specifically if we are in the middle of a recount and we are going to go through all of these numbers, and we already know we have minor changes in them. Why is Mingo's number still up on that website? Because clearly, no matter how this finishes, those numbers are going to have to come down and be rechecked. So you have my word on that. I'm going to bring that.
I want to ask
Leonard?
Yes, I want to ask Mr. Jabour very quickly. What numbers is he using to compare to what would have happened? What numbers is he using? A statement of polls, what they would have collected, or is it copies of what the People's Progressive Party, some other party, gives to them?
No, we again, I think that's the most important part of this. All the information that a new and united Guyana has, we have independently accumulated. Okay? This is where the confusion comes in. Everybody keeps thinking that we're using all the SOPs from the March 2nd election. That's not the case. We don't have all of those. We have, call it 300 SOPs, and we then bounce the information off of those 300 SOPs. Okay? Where obviously you can have a clear picture. I can argue this in court. I can have a clear picture from my 300 SOPs, whether or not the information that Mingo declared was accurate or not. We do have recorded information that our agents from Ashman's building and from Kingston, from the GCOM headquarters in Kingston, those two areas that Mingo made the declarations, we do have recordings and numbers that he called out from SOPs at those meetings. All right? So the reality is, we have completely independent information. It might not be the whole picture, but it's definitely enough to make a conclusion that there were alterations made. All right?
Right. I agree with you. And Kian, I know you're in the hot seat tonight as we try to unleash the truth here about what's happening there. And I want you to know, I think Mr. Harman said something in jest that is actually very true when he said they were launching the Operation Eagle Eyes. Tomorrow when you talk to them, tell them the nation launched it since March 3rd. We launched it, and we are looking with a magnifying glass at everything being said and done. I have taken, and I'm not going to ask you to comment, we're actually running out of program time. I've taken careful note of Mr. Alexander's statement that it was the AG, Basil Williams, that told the GCOM not to proceed with the recount. And I am working on another angle, hopefully tomorrow night show or the next day show, Leonard, we can talk about it. Because it was subsequent to that Mr. Granger made a statement that government has nothing to do with GCOM. So, we do know that the AG's office has to give legal advice, and it is something we are looking as to see how independent has GCOM really been through this process. But that is another discussion for another day. Kian, we are getting to program time. So your final thoughts with regards to the numbers and how they're shaping up, and specifically, are your party's numbers any different from what you originally saw in your own SOPs now that the recount is underway?
The answer to that is actually no. Our numbers are very much so. Obviously, there are, give or take, a few clerical human error discrepancies, which is 1 or 2 votes that, for example, you find one in the box, and everybody agrees, yes, that's a valid vote, but it was put in the rejected pile. But nothing to change the outcome so far. So yes, we do have a fairly accurate picture of what's happening thus far. We believe that these recount is running extremely credible. All right, we can attest to all those numbers, like I said, that go up on that screen every day. We have signed off on them. All right, and our agents were there and witnessed them. I do believe that you told me just now the numbers of people that don't think this process is going to continue. We're going to get derailed at some point.
Let's be positive.
I'd like to say that
positive.
my experience so far with Commission and especially with Madam Chair, I believe she has all intentions to finish what she started. I know she has the support of the international community, and again, she has the support of people like myself and independent voices and the new parties that are here that are unbiased and just want to see a system run credibly and transparent.
Thank you. Well, Kian, that has been quite an interesting conversation. I know that we have pushed quite a number of things at you. As you know, it is out of mutual respect that we have for each other that we can have this conversation.
Absolutely.
And we certainly wish you well as you, you are our representative in that room, you and your other colleagues, of course. And when we say that, we don't mean just yourself and the political parties there, but also of the incumbent. All of you, whether you're from APNU AFC or you're from the PPPC, you're representing somebody out here. You're representing the population in there. My only regret, Kian, and I know we have to do this, I know that the recount is important to Guyana. My only regret is that we're wasting the counting and the declaration could have complied with Section 84.2. Mengo could have done the right thing. The chairman could have demanded from Lowenfield the SOPs. The commission could have gone through those SOPs and made a legitimate declaration of the elections. And today, the money we're wasting to set up a convention center could have been used to feed people who are starving across this country because they cannot work. And my friend, you know me, I am very passionate about how we can help the poor people of this country. And I really feel this is a lot of money going down the drain when the chairman still has the law on her side to release those SOPs, to tomorrow morning get up and say the SOPs are really the property of the people of this Guyana and we can make things happen. But I doubt it's going to happen. And like you, we remain optimists that the process will come to a good end. And we certainly hope to see the light at the end of that tunnel. Kian, thank you for joining us. I know we kept you. We initially thought this would be for half an hour, but we kept you going for an hour. I hope we didn't, we didn't upset any of your thoughts.
The truth is, I'm just happy to be talking to somebody without a mask on all day. So it's a pleasure.
I could imagine. And sir, well, thank you so much. Stay good, stay safe, and know that our eyes are on you guys.
All right.
And we look forward to your continued feed. And Kian, let me extend an invitation right now for next week, Tuesday, same time, same channel, please. Please do come and give us your updates, sir. Thank you. Leonard, before I hand over to you, sir, for your final words, let me remind everyone that we will be having the head of one of the embassies in Guyana joining us on the 2:00 show tomorrow. Unfortunately, yours truly will not be on that show. It will be only Mr. Leonard Gildarie because I have some other very important matters to take care of. So, Leonard, it will be all over to you tomorrow, sir. I don't know if you want to release right now who your guest will be, but it's up to you, sir.
No big secret. We don't have anything to hide here. And so tomorrow, the U.S. Embassy, the ambassador of the U.S. Of Guyana, and that would be Sarah Ann Lynch, is going to be a guest at 2:00 tomorrow, and we're going to get her via Zoom. And so there are a lot of questions to ask, Carter Center, etc. So that's going to be pretty hot at 2:00 tomorrow. I really regret that you can't be here, but you will be joining us very shortly after you would have finished your engagement. So I want to say thank you very much. And of course...
and I will certainly send my questions to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's going to be, as we continue to hold our stakeholders, we continue to hold them accountable. We are going to bring other guests as well. But the U.S. ambassador, pretty important figure in the whole scheme of things here. And so I want to say thank you very much, Yog. Pretty interesting program. Kian Jabour, one of the young representatives who would have come out here. And I think we are headed in the right direction. However, we need some urgent reforms. Over to you, Yog. Thank you very much.
And one of the good things, Leonard, is that we are looking to expose the younger persons that are involved in the process. I mean, we have had very, very strong discussions with Kian outside of this program, and he's a wonderful gentleman. And Kian, thank you for coming here, because that's the type of questions that we need to discuss for the population to see. I want to share with everybody out there that tomorrow night in room 592, we are going to have international economist Mr. Taran Kamraj to join us in this program, as will be joined by Mr. Saiz Gunraj, Commissioner Saiz Gunraj, to give us the update of the elections. And also to let you know, on Thursday night, Mr. Shaz Ali from the Citizens Initiative will be joining us to give us his take on the update and on everything at GCOM. So, ladies and gentlemen, do join us tomorrow at 2 o'clock on the elections and COVID watch, when Leonard Gildarie will be having a chat with the ambassador of the United States to Guyana. Do tune into that. And tomorrow night, do join us in room 592. And to Miss Alison Richards, if you have any questions about that, please call me and ask me. I don't mind answering that.
Thank you very much, Yog. And good night, everybody.
Good night, one and all. Have a wonderful night, and see you safe and sound tomorrow from room 592 Kite Show Radio. Thank you. Good night.